Good morning to all. Welcome to another section of this online class. So today we will be beginning the Indian Writing in English paper, which is the another paper, main paper in the semester 5. And this paper is divided into 3 sections. And section 1 is regarding the poetry. So today I will be taking one poem from the section 1, which is the Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S., which is a poem by Nissim Ezekiel. And this poem is in the textbook, which is the chapter 4. So today I will be dealing with this poem, and this poem is about a farewell party to Miss Pushpa T.S. and some natural things while what will be occurring during a farewell party. So before going to the poem, I will be introducing the Indian literature in English, basically an historical perspective. So the year 1827 is the generally accepted date or the commencement of the Indian literature in English, but it is at least a few decades late. The pamphlets of Rajaram Mohan Rai began being published some 20 years earlier in 1816, while the very first pamphlet written in English by an Indian appears to have been published in 1806. So from the 19th century onwards, the Indian English literature began to develop in a very good manner. So in 1827, which is the year, is the accepted year, which is regarded as the commencement of the Indian literature in English. Then, while the very first pamphlet written in English by an Indian appears to have been published in 1806, so it is just earlier to this beginning of this Indian English literature, and the first book to be published in English by an Indian appeared before the end of the 18th century itself. In 1794, Indian, who is the major writer during that time, Sheikh Din Muhammad, wrote a book during the 1794, and he is the only one of the many Indians who were writing in English before the end of the 18th century. So before 18th century, the Indian writings was less in number, especially the Indian writing in English. And after the 18th century or the beginning of the early 19th century, the Indian writing in English became most popular or began to develop in a very good manner. Then the revolution of Indian intellectual life was so complete by the 1830s that Rajaram Mohan Rai's autobiography had already been published in English. So in 1803, the autobiography of Rajaram Mohan Rai was published, which is in English, and basically Rajaram Mohan Rai is the Indian writer. So this is considered as the first official book by an Indian which is written in English. Then Krishna Mohan Banerjee's The Persecuted was the first play in English published in 1831. So The Persecuted was the first play which was written in English published in 1831 by Krishna Mohan Banerjee. Then the first novel in English by Bangam Chandra Chatterjee, which is the Rajaram's wife, Rajmohan's wife, which was published in 1864. So we discussed about the first book, which is the autobiography of Rajaram Mohan Rai. Then the first play, which is the Persecuted by the by the Krishna Mohan Banerjee in 1831. Then we discussed about the first novel in English, which is in 1831 by Bangam Chandra Chatterjee, Rajmohan's wife, and it is officially published in 1864. So the first play was published in 1831, and the first book novel which is published in 1864. So these are the first major writings of Indian English literature. Gradually all the writers or the Indian writers began to write in a very systematic manner, in a very standard manner, which is in English, and the subjects was focused on the post-colonial aspects, the life experiences, and some the children's stories, etc. So all these things are regarded as the beginning of the Indian English literature. Then the Macaulay's Minutes, which is introduced in the state-supported English language education into India, was the same minute which considered the Indian could already in 1835 use the English with ease, fluency, and precision that would to credit any member of Macaulay's on British Committee of Public Instruction. So after the Macaulay's minutes, which is regarded as one of the greatest milestone before the Indian independence struggle. So with the help of this Macaulay's minutes, the English development or the English language was developed in Indian country, because the India was basically at that time was a developing country, and the English was one of the foreign language. So with the introduction of this Macaulay minutes, the English language was popularized, and it began to study in the school level as well. So it is the first form of English study in the Indian nation. So this is regarding some historic of this English language in India. Then prose was the first of the literary forms of Indian English literature, and it continues to the largest and more virtuous form. So the prose form was the first form of literature in Indian English. Then it gradually it began to develop as the poetry and plays, dramas, etc. So the development was in a very straight and very powerful manner, very good manner. So the development of Indian English literature, we can trace it out from the 1830s onwards. So by the reforming the seal of the Rajaram Mohan Rai, who is regarded as the first writer who wrote the autobiography in English, and who is basically Indian, and he aimed at educated people all over the country. So his intention was to educate the people all over the country, especially the English language. So with this aim of the Rajaram Mohan Roy, he formulated the Indian English literature or Indian English schooling, which is basically to study the English language in the Indian perspective. So this is one of the major milestone during this time. And then a long time after this, writers like Jawaharlal Nehru, then Mahatma Gandhi, all these contributions from all these writers, and also Mr. Chowdhury and Veda Mehta, all writers write the English language, wrote in English language with different forms of strategies. Especially they write the language of English in an effective manner or in a very creative manner. So thus the English in India was developed in a very systematic manner. So the writings of Nehru and then the Mahatma Gandhi, all the writings are very popular later after writing this Indian writing English. So thus the Indian English writing was developed into a certain amount of level, in which it is regarded as the first form of development in Indian English literature, especially the prose writing, and then gradually the poetry came into existence. Then the drama, plays, all the other genres were developed after the introduction to prose in English in India. So this is just a background to the Indian English literature. Then the fiction in English compared to poetry shows a steadily increasing popularity at first. So at first the fiction was more popular, especially in the English literature, and then gradually the poetry came into more popular than the fiction, and it is regarded as a growing stage or a developing stage of Indian English literature when the mid of 19th century. And then the drama was also developed later, and while we look at the some accounts of these writings of Indian English literature, the last of the literary forms to flourish, and there have been only some 200 plays published in English over the period of 150 years. So during the 150 years, 200 plays was published in India by some Indian writings by some Indian writers, which is basically in English. So these are the some important aspects of the Indian English literature. So the second period begins with the Roy, and it is basically based on by the writings of Rajaram Mohan Roy, and it is marked by the steadily increasing use of the language on the part of the growing nationalist class, which was during this period entirely English educated. So these are some information regarding the second period, and it was very short in length. And later the third period was begin, which is the third period of Indian English literature from the 1930s onwards. And with the arrival of the three major Indo-Anglican novels, so these writers or these novelists is regarded as the three pillars of the Indian English literature. They are the Mulkraj Anand, R.K. Narayan, and also the Raja Rao. So these three writers is regarded as the major or the most successful Indian English writers during the early period of this Indian English literature. Then later, these all the writing from these novelists like Mulkraj Anand, R.K. Narayan, and Raja Rao came into more popular, and it gained many popularity. Then later, the writings by Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru, all these writings were regarded as in the category of this third period of this Indian English literature. So this is regarding some period-wise division of this Indian English literature. So it is not surprising that India is among the 10 largest publishers in the world. What is a little surprising is that a very little known is that India is now the largest publisher of English language books in the world after the United States and Britain. So India is registered a very successful mark in the history of the publication also, in which India published many books, especially English language books in India itself, basically by the Indian authors and also from the other authors who wrote in India about the Indian myth, culture, story, etc. So all these things make the Indian English literature into develop into a very good manner. So this is just regarding the first phase or the just a history to the Indian English literature, and the basic of the or the major award or the major recognition of Indian English literature is that the Indian writers in English have now won the every major literary prize, which includes the Nobel Prize which was won by Tagore in 1913, and the Booker McConnell Prize for 1981 was won by Clement. So then the have Thornton Prize, the Commonwealth Poetry Prize, the Duff Cooper Memorial Award, the Winsfield Hobby Award, then the Royal Society for Literature, and the English Speaking Union Prize for the Best Novel of the Year. All of these have been won by Indians. So this is the very good recognition in the basis of this Indian English literature, in which the Indians who wrote in English won many prestigious awards, which includes the Nobel Prize too. So this is a very interesting factor, and we all know that the Midnight Children by Salman Rushdie, then the writings by Tagore, which includes the Geetanjali, etc. Then the writings by the most recent, which is the writing by Arundhati Roy, The God of Small Things. So all these writing which increased the popularity of Indian English literature or the Indian English writings. So this is just an introduction to this paper or this topic, which is the Indian English literature and historical perspective. Now we are moving to the poem itself, which is the Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S., which is written by Nissim Ezekiel, and which is the fourth chapter in this textbook, in the page number 16 onwards. So we have some details about Nissim Ezekiel. We have to go through the some biography of the Nissim Ezekiel. He was born on 1924. In Mumbai, 14 December, and he is regarded as the major Indian writer in English, and basically a Jew by descent, and he received his education at Wilson College, Mumbai, and Birkbeck College, London, and he was a visiting professor at the University of Leeds in 1964, and his first collection of poems, The Bad Boy, which was published in 1952. So these are the basics of this writer Nissim Ezekiel, and in the textbook we can see the other details of this poet. And besides all this publication, which includes the Bad Day, which is the first collection of his poems in 1952, besides all this, many volumes of poetry, he has penned a few plays, short stories, articles and reviews. So rather than the poetry, he also wrote many plays, short stories, articles and reviews. So he is recognized as the major Indian English literature writer, and he wrote many works, which means that he contributed many works to Indian English literature. And he was a victim of Alzheimer's disease towards the end of his life, and this means that he died due to the Alzheimer's, and at the end of his life, Ezekiel died on the 9th January 2004. So it is very very pathetic way in which he died due to this specific disease, which is regarded as the Alzheimer's, in 2004. Then Nissim Ezekiel anchored his poetic career in modernist poetry adorned in Pidgin English, and he wrote his poems in a cool satiric style. So this is regarding his style of writing, in which all the writings of this poet, who is the Nissim Ezekiel, was cool and very cool composed, and also his writings got gained many popularity, and his writings also regarded as the satiric style. So all these writings also, the poem that we are going to study is also such a satiric style, which is a typical style written by Nissim Ezekiel. Then he received the Sahitya Academy Award in 1983 for his book Latter Day Paslams. He was also honored with the Padma Shri in 1988. So this is regarding the major awards and major contributions by Nissim Ezekiel in Indian English literature. And this poem, regarding this poem, which is Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S., is written in free verse, and it is a satire, a hilarious poem on the ordinary Indian use of English, and English unnaturally affected by the interference of mother tongue. So this is regarding this poem, just an outline to this poem, in which this is a satire, in which the hilarious poem on the ordinary Indian use of English. So we can see that the title itself, which is the Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S., this is not a formal way of writing the sentence, in which the goodbye party, which can be written in a very good manner, which is a farewell party or a ADU party to Miss Pushpa T.S. So all these terms are avoided, and he wrote the term goodbye party for Miss Pushpa T.S. So what is the reason behind it? So the only reason behind this is that this is just like a satire. So satire means just to like a hilarious poem, just to point out the negative side of this, all the myth and all the chaos of Indian English writing literature. Basically, how the common man or the ordinary Indian use the English. So this is regarding this title, the Goodbye Party of Miss Pushpa T.S. So this poem satirizes the ideological features of English spoken by Gujarati speakers. Then the chief source of laughter in this poem springs from the use of the faulty word order and un-English idioms and phrases, and faulty grammar, especially incorrect use of the present progressive tense in place of the simple present tense. And also the humor in the poem is derived only when the poem is looked at from the perspective of standard or native speakers of English. So this is a very important point while we study this poem, in which the humor in the poem is derived only when the poem is looked at the form of the perspective of or the standard or the native speakers of English. Then to an average Indian speaker of English, this poem is very good in manner, and while we discuss or while we look this poem in a very analytical manner, we can see that there are many mistakes, which includes the faulty grammar, the un-English idioms, phrases, and faulty word order, and incorrect use of the present progressive tense in place of the simple present tense. So all these things we can find out from this poem. So this is regarding just an outline of this poem, and we are going to just analytically outline or analytically look this poem in a very short manner, which in a very point wise. So the first point regarding this poem is that a meeting is arranged to give a send-off party to Miss Pushpa T.S., who is going to abroad within 2 or 3 days. And the narrator is delivering the introductory speech. So this is the setting of this poem, in which a meeting is arranged to give a send-off party to Miss Pushpa T.S. So Miss Pushpa T.S. is the main character. So basically this is the poem. So we have a main character in this poem too, which is the Miss Pushpa T.S., and the meeting is arranged in order to give a goodbye party, which is a farewell party to Miss Pushpa T.S., who is going to abroad within 2 or 3 days. And the narrator is delivering the introductory speech. So in this poem, the narrator is delivering the introductory speech, which is for this goodbye party for the Miss Pushpa T.S. Then the second point regarding this poem is that the speaker describes the good qualities of the character of Miss Pushpa. She is always friendly and jovial with her hand, some ways and winsome manners. So regarding this Miss Pushpa T.S., the speaker describes the good qualities first regarding the character of this Miss Pushpa T.S., and she is always friendly and jovial with her hand, some always the winsome manners. So she is basically handsome personality and winsome manners. So this is regarding Miss Pushpa T.S. Then the third point in this regarding this poem is that the speaker further gives more biographical details of Pushpa. She belongs to a very high family. Her father was a reputed advocate in Bulsar or Surat, but the speaker doesn't remember her father's name. So this is regarding another important point regarding this poem, in which the speaker further gives more biographical details of Pushpa. So the speaker of this poem gives some more biographical things regarding Pushpa, especially regarding her family. So she belongs to a very high family, and her father was a reputed advocate in Bulsar or Surat, but the speaker doesn't remember her father's name. So this is just regarding her biography, especially regarding her family. He was from a very high family, and his father was a reputed advocate. Then the fourth point in this poem is that, regarding this poem, is that the speaker only remembers that he had stayed in Surat once with the family of his uncle's friend, but it was long ago. So regarding this family of Miss Pushpa T.S., the speaker only remembers that he had stayed in Surat once with the family of his uncle's friend, but it was long ago. So this is also another important thing, in which the speaker did not remember whether regarding the family in Surat, and also he has only a little bit of memory regarding her childhood memories, and also they are living in the place of Surat while they were stayed in Surat, but it was long ago. Then the next point, fifth point, is that from this description of the speaker comes back to the present topic, which is the Miss Pushpa is most popular among her friends. So from this biography, from the details of their family, the speaker of this poem, or the narrator of this poem, just shift from this topic into the farewell party itself. So from the past to the present, the story or the narration is come into the present tense, or the present situation, which is the goodbye party or farewell party of Miss Pushpa. And regarding Miss Pushpa, she was the most popular among her friends. So she is regarded as the most kindful or the popular employee in this office, and also her friends like her too. Then the next point is that she is always obliging. So this is very good amount of manners, in which she obliged every aspect or every rule or everything which was in an office. It is very necessary to obey to follow the rules of that institution. So this is regarding this Miss Pushpa, in which she is always obliging, and the speaker appreciates her good spirits. So the speaker also appreciates her good spirit for obeying this kind of things. Then the seventh point is that she never says no. So this is very important thing, in which she never replied, or she never said the word no, which is basically is regarded as a negative feeling, or which is a form of excuse in order to avoid something risk. So to avoid risk, many people will tell to reply with the word no. So here the narrator or the main character of this in this poem, Miss Pushpa T.S., she never says no. So this is a very good quality of this Miss Pushpa. Then she is always prepared to help others. So it is also another important thing, in which she is always helpful to others, and the speaker feels the agony of leave taking. So the leave taking was also very less in number, in which she take a few leaves while she was in the office, and this is also the another important aspect for a good employee in an office. So she never says no, and she is always prepared to help others, and also she feels the agony of leave taking. So these are the major important things regarding the Miss Pushpa T.S. Especially the main good qualities of Miss Pushpa T.S. Then she leaves for the abroad, looking forward to better prospects in life, and the speaker wishes her bon voyage. So at the end of this poem, the speaker says that she leaves for abroad, looking forward to better prospects in life. So it is only for her a better life, or to get a better kind of life in her future, and the speaker wishes her bon voyage. So bon voyage means wishing a good wishes to her, and it is regarded as the typical term in Indian English to convey the wishes in a very good manner. So this is regarding the seventh point. And at last, the eighth point is that he asks others to speak. Then Miss Pushpa will reply. So the narrator of this poem, who gives an introductory speech in this farewell party, he tells some good qualities of Miss Pushpa T.S., the biography of Miss Pushpa T.S. Later, after his speech, he says that he asks to others to speak, and also the Miss Pushpa will reply, which means that the at the end of this farewell party, Miss Pushpa will tell the farewell message or reply message regarding her taking the leave in order to going to abroad. So this is regarding the basics of the just an outline to this poem, which is Miss Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. So in this class we discussed about the just an introduction to the history of Indian English literature. Then we begin this poem, which is Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S., which is a very typical poem by an Indian writer, in which regarding a farewell party to this Miss Pushpa T.S., and it is written in free verse. And regarding the introduction to this poem, we go through the biography of this author, who is Nissim Ezekiel, and he is regarded as a major Indian writer in English and was born in Mumbai, and he won some awards, which includes the Sahitya Akademi Award, then the Padma Shri in 1988, and such prestigious awards. He won the major awards from the Indian point of view, and also the prestigious awards too. So this is regarding Nissim Ezekiel, and his first collection of poems was the Bad Day, which was published in 1952, and he was also the visiting professor at the University of Leeds in 1964. So this is very recognition to this poet, in which he was a visiting professor at the University of Leeds in 1964. Even though he was an Indian, and he became the visiting professor at the University of Leeds. So this is regarding the major points regarding Nissim Ezekiel, and we go through the poem, outline to this poem and introduction to this poem. So first we look at the structure of this poem. The structure of this poem is that which is written in free verse, and also it is a satire, which means a hilarious poem on the ordinary Indian use of English. So in this poem, the language is just ordinary of use of English, and it has many mistakes or many corrections to be done. So these are basically the faulty word order, the un-English idioms and phrases, and the faulty grammar, and especially the incorrect use of the present progressive tense in place of the simple present tense. And all these things are the major mistakes or the major drawbacks of this poem. So this why this poem is written in this manner is that to convey or to present the fault or the hilarious the funny way of the Indian English in a very especially the ordinary Indian use of English in a very satirical way. So this poem is regarded as a satire against the ordinary use of Indian English. And we go through the just outline to this poem, and we go through just some aspect which includes the humor in this poem, which is derived only when the poem is looked from the perspective of standard or the native speakers of English. So these are the major points that we discuss about just an introduction to this poem regarding this author and regarding this poem. Then we analytically go through the basics of this poem by discussing the 8 points. So the first point was regarding this setting of this poem, in which this poem is just like a speech, an introductory speech by the narrator itself, and this is a meeting which is arranged to give a send-off party to Miss Pushpa, and who is going abroad within the 2 or 3 days, and this narrator is delivering the introductory speech. So this is the setting of this poem. Then the speaker described the good qualities of the character of Miss Pushpa, and she is always friendly and jovial with her handsome and also some winsome manners. So this is regarding some basic qualities of Miss Pushpa. Then we go through some another biographical details, in which she was from a very high reputed family, and her father was a reputed advocate in Surat. Then we go through another important points from this speaker point of view, which includes the some memories in which the speaker only remembers that he had stayed in Surat once with the family of his uncle's friend, but it was long ago. So it is just like a throwback or a memory of the speaker itself. Then we discussed about Miss Pushpa itself, in which she was very popular among his friends, and also she was always obliging, and the speaker appreciated her good spirit. Then she never says no, which is regarded as a very good quality of a person, and she always prepared to help others, and also she feels the agony of leave taking. Then the basics of the reason why because she leave this office to abroad is that she is looking for a better future. So this is the background of this poem, and at the end of this poem, the narrator asked others to speak, and later to then Miss Pushpa to give the reply address or the farewell message regarding their farewell. So this is regarding this poem, just an outline to this poem. So we discussed just an introduction to this poem, which is Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. And in the next class, we will be dealing with the poem itself, which is the line by line of this poem from 17th page onwards. Till then, go through all these details and go through the textbook from page number 16 onwards to get a clear idea regarding this chapter. So that's for today. Thank you.